Rock concert movement number 1. The basic head bob. Ready, go.
Just put me wherever. Not there. Did you see, by the way, the White House? Part of the Obama administration, they put together a website for petitions, because if there's anything that's effective in this world, it's online petitions. That's why Firefly is still on the air. Am I off kilter? I'm like diagonal. I feel like I'm tilting. But one of the petitions is to build a Death Star by 2015. And it's received over 25,000.
Out of all the petitions there could possibly be on that, that is the one I want.
I think of what it would be a great jobs program. Because if you overlook the enslaved Wookiees, a lot of people worked on that Death Star. You don't build that thing.
Think about all the master craftsmanship guys that, would be out there. I mean, we'd get some of our best for our best on it, and we wouldn't have to tell everybody it was fully operational.
No, you never tell them that.
Not even in the last moments right before. It's just best them find out as the planet explodes.
It may be a trap, but I like where this petition is going. All right. Number's 244-0077. All are welcome. Some are capable. Email radiobradshaw@gmail.com. And you can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Radio Bradshaw. So if you're watching the news this weekend, surprise, guns seem to be the big topic. Except for, I don't know if anyone else notices, the NRA goes silent when events like this happen. The length of the silence depends on, well, the scope and the whiteness, I think, of the victims. Where, someplace like Aurora, they might go quiet for a week. A Sikh temple gets shot up, they'll take 24 hours off and get back to work. We'll see what happens. But I guess like the day after they were celebrating like 1.6 million fans on Facebook, they deactivated their Facebook page. And their Twitter has been silent. In addition, the folks at Meet the Press reached out to 31 different pro-gun centers. Not one would appear on the show. When they say, hey, we don't want to have the conversation, they mean it. They stick by their words. And you would think if something, this self-evident, isn't that the argument, is that, between the Second Amendment and freedom and liberty and penis enhancement. I'm not kidding about that one. They would be eager to stand up, right? I mean, I could act the role of NRA spokesperson. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. If only someone, like, we all know the platitudes, right? How hard is it to go on and repeat those? But the NRA is silent. Gun supporters, at least on the national level, certainly your local gun enthusiast has all sorts of things to say. Your talk radio hosts have all sorts of things to say. And I am of the belief that is because of those people speaking that the NRA knows no good will come of it. Maybe it's, Mike Huckabee. Again, as happens all too often. Channeling the Westboro Baptist Church, but using nicer language. And we'll get to that, but I mean, just looking, this is, again, just from this weekend. We had an unknown shooter fired a single bullet through a Des Moines living room window, striking home its occupant and sending him to the hospital Monday morning, according to police. And that's on First Street. So that's the Des Moines angle. In Oklahoma, Sammy Chavez was arrested. This on Friday. Police claim he was trying to recruit other students at his high school to help him lure classmates into a school auditorium where he planned to chain the doors shut and start shooting them. Then attach explosives to the doors for when police came. Also, threatened the classmates that if they didn't do a good enough job, he wouldn't hesitate to shoot them as well. For some reason, someone turned him over to the police for this. In Alabama, a man walked into St. Vincent's Hospital and started shooting. I'm assuming because they don't let God in there. And that was followed hours later by a SWAT team chasing a man who had allegedly killed 3 people. And on Saturday, in Indiana, a town called Cedar Lake, police were called to the home of a 60-year-old man, Von Meyer, who said he would enter the Jane Ball Elementary School and kill as many people as he could. I'm assuming that number is pretty high, considering that in this home they found 47 guns and $100,000 worth of ammunition. Yeah. That's just this weekend. That's over the course of 72 hours in this country. We may have a bit of a problem. Learning more about the family. The mom, Nancy Lanza, was found dead in addition to the school shooting victims when police raided the house. And it turns out she was a doomsday prepper. Are you familiar with these? Like, they have their own reality series.
Yeah, I've sadly watched 20 minutes of one of them.
These are folks who believe the end of the world is imminent, and to various degrees. Some, have full on, Glenn Beck doom rooms. Others just stockpile massive amounts of food and water and guns. But I guess she was one of the. Well, now this was the Daily Mail, so take it. But described her as a paranoid survivalist who believed the world was on the verge of violent economic collapse. She was reported to have been struggling to hold herself together and had been stockpiling food, water, and guns in the home that she shared with her 20-year-old son, Adam. Now, on Friday, everyone was saying it was Ryan Lanza. And we'll talk later about the media reaction to these things, because that desire to be first. We must pump out new information. I think does harm, especially if you're Ryan Lanza. You work in finance in New York, and for about 4 hours on Friday, you were the most loathed man in America. But according to the articles we're getting as the fog of war, I don't know what. I know it's not an appropriate term here, but I don't know what you call it. It's just that kind of haze around breaking news as everyone's rushing to find out as much as they can. And we'll correct it on page 14, but we need something for page 1 above the fold immediately. For kids out there, that's a newspaper reference. Ask your grandparents. And you don't want to blame the victim, but she had a troubled kid. Not, in trouble with the law. He wasn't, stealing cars or doing anything illicit, but was not the most stable of people. I mean, in hindsight, I guess that's obvious. And she kept a collection of weapons around. I guess not knowing statistically, you're far more likely to have that weapon used against you than to ever use it against someone else. Like neighbors says they would never let anyone into their house. Like if someone came over, she would always meet them on the front porch. That's one of those survivalist things. Like you don't want people to know because the assumption is your entire neighborhood is going to descend upon your home, looking to get your stuff.
Did you hear the brother hadn't seen?
Mad Max.
Did you hear the brother Ryan had
for 2 years?
8 years.
8 years? No, it couldn't have been 8.
Yeah, it was like 8 years, or maybe that was her brother. His
uncle.
I
know a lot of the family members
didn't
have much contact with these two. She wouldn't let people into the house.
Yeah, no, I read some neighbor reports where they'd meet. She'd come out the side entrance and meet him there. Yeah, she would not let anyone even take a step into the foyer. Well, it's been confirmed now that he has Asperger's syndrome.
Was it? I know there's 1,000,001 self-diagnosed.
Well, no, that's a form of autism.
Well, yeah, but that's the translation. I'm awkward with people. Was it like an official?
Yeah, it's official. Oh. Yeah, I don't think it was just the I'm awkward Asperger's.
But she had a child who she knew. They talked to one of her former babysitters. And this is from, a decade ago. But even when this Adam Lanza was 10 years old, she was, don't leave him alone for a minute. Like, even going to the bathroom, don't leave him.
We read the same reports.
Probably. Stuff's everywhere because everyone and their mother's looking to cover as much of this story as possible. But husband left, don't know why. And the kid didn't have a Facebook or a Twitter, no note, no manifesto. Left. Police did find a hard drive that he had smashed up. And again, depending on how interested authorities are in the information that might be on that hard drive, there are ways. They're long and hard and expensive, but there are ways, even if you smash up your hard drive to get the info, to just figure out why. Reports Friday that she was a teacher there, not true, or substitute teacher there, not true. She had no connection to the school. He had gone there. What age do you leave? You leave elementary school when you're what, 12? 13 if you're a late bloomer. So why there and not, a middle school? Well, actually, this was only through 4th grade, so it would be even younger. So it would have been, over a decade since he had gone to school there. But I guess the kid was a recluse, never went anywhere outside. But I guess we'll learn more in time. I guess did the the doomsday prepping have anything to do with this? But I think it's certainly a strike against the, more guns equal safer than argument. Here's a woman who dedicated a good portion of her life to this, and sadly ends up the victim of her own weaponry. I guess there were reports that he still had hundreds of rounds of ammunition left, enough to kill every single person in that school, but decided to punch his ticket as soon as police started to encroach. We're also learning more about some of the victims. The school psychologist and the principal actually went to confront him. One of the dead, a first grade teacher, hid her students in the closet and stayed to tell the gunman they were in the gym. So he shot her and left. And the kids were safe. I guess another teacher was found physically laying on top of some students to take the bullets for them. Just something else to remember next time Republicans consider teachers to be, union thug scammers. There was the teachers that were, standing, holding the door closed. Or the ones, put their children's safety ahead of themselves. Or even the ones, just, everyone, be absolutely silent. I'm going to read very quietly to you, and we're all not going to make a noise. And wait for police to arrive. Ezra Klein had a piece in the Washington Post. Just some perspective on gun shootings, mass shootings, of which 61 have happened in this country since 1982 is when track these things. Almost all of them, I think 49 of the 61, the guns were purchased legally. It's not illegal guns, for the most part, that are taking part in these mass shootings.
You do realize, though, these guns were illegal that were used in this one, right?
No, they weren't.
Absolutely.
They were. He
stole them from his mother. He wouldn't have been allowed to possess them anyway because he's not 21. He could not have owned these guns.
No, they were just sitting there in his house, readily available.
That speaks to the safety.
And they weren't purchased illegally.
But
that's
all
the
guns
point.
Are purchased legally. How many guns are stolen from the Colt factory? I would like to know. All guns are purchased legally. Now, how they end up on the streets is differently.
Not all guns are purchased.
There's
legally.
What gun isn't?
The one you can probably go 5 miles from here if you know the right person and buy the one with no.
At some point, it was purchased
serial.
illegally, and it was new at one point too. I mean, that's it.
But the killers had obtained their weapons.
But
legally.
that killer didn't obtain his weapon legally. He didn't have permission to use it. He stole it from his mother, and he
certainly didn't ask.
Yeah, and he wasn't. He isn't old enough to have had those weapons.
But these aren't guns that are being bought out of the back of, a white van. These aren't guns.
What's the difference
that
between
a gangbanger is selling?
What's the difference between this gun that he stole from his mother and if he would have bought it from a white van? How would that gun be any more or less deadly?
Well, the question is, would he have? I mean, here's a kid who was a recluse and never left the house. Would he have gone and bought one from a white van? We don't know, but we do know.
I don't know. He shot his mom in the face 4 times. Seemed pretty extreme. Probably would have done whatever.
I don't know if he would have known someone to buy. I wouldn't know where to buy guns out of the back of a white van. I could probably make some phone calls, but I hope that would set off a few.
I don't even know if you could buy them out of a white van. I mean,
back of a trunk. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm talking about I was generalizing, not
illicit.
I'm saying I don't know that those exist as much as you think, or that there is easy access.
That's the thing. I based on mass shootings, it's rather rare.
Sure.
We can watch all the Breaking Bad you want. You're not Walt, and you don't have a guy. So these are guns that are being purchased. Like the main weapon he used was a Bushmaster. Are you familiar with these?
Yep, I'm familiar with it.
They literally have an ad. Like this is, I used to joke, about guns being, penile enhancers, but they literally sell them at, get your man card repunched. And I let my subscription to Guns and Ammo and Soldier of Fortune magazine lapse. Sorry. It just didn't have the same quality content as highlights. I don't see a lot of gun ads, but the ones I saw were a little, and it's a lot of machismo. The silhouette of the woman you see, I can't even make the pose. Like on Hillbilly Truckers mud flaps. We've all seen it. If you saw it, you'd recognize it. But that with like a 50 caliber silhouette added. So certainly you can't tell me that it's not being sold partially as a testosterone replacement. Of the worst mass shootings in the 50 years, over half took place in the United States. Of the 11 deadliest shootings in the U.S., 5 have happened since 2007. Yes, the U.S. Has more assault deaths per 100,000 than anywhere else in the first world. That's right. The most violent region in the U.S. Anyone want to bet? It's the South, which far outpaces the rest of the country when it comes to assault deaths. And something we talked about on Friday when it comes to guns, and that is there are far more guns in this country than there have been in the past. We don't have an exact count. But we just saw on Black Friday record broken for the number of background checks in a day. But the number of homes that possess guns have actually gone down. So what you're seeing, more guns concentrated into fewer hands. We talked about the guy in Indiana with his 47-gun arsenal of freedom. But your average gun owner owns 7. And the question, of course, is what to do. Ron, welcome. What can I do for you today?
Yeah. I'm just coming to believe that I understand the purpose of the Second Amendment in the 18th century for communities to be able to defend themselves, protect themselves. But, it's not the 18th century anymore. And I'm wondering if the goal of the Second Amendment is to allow people to live in freedom and safety, I gotta say, it ain't working too well these days.
No, and my beef with the Second Amendment, aside from the argument, is it an historical artifact? When you consider the very next amendment is about the quartering of soldiers in people's homes, is for as many people who want to be, even beyond biblically literal with, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The first part of that statement about a well-regulated militia is absolutely ignored. It never enters into the conversation. It's never brought up. It's never mentioned by gun folk. What exactly is a well-regulated militia? Is, a woman, in this case, the victim, the first victim of this kill, with her weapons. Is that a well-regulated militia? Is the 60-year-old, get off my lawn Indiana man with 47 guns? Jared Loeffner? What is a well-regulated militia? If we're going to be, literalists here, let's be consistent.
It's I know that gun people like to see themselves as the solution and the go-to people, but you know what? It's just like the stats that I look at, in the neighborhood, the gun people, and in a way I have to confess, okay, interest of full disclosure. I have a firearm in my household. It's actually an 18th century musket, so I'm really in line.
If the redcoats come, you're set, though.
Yeah, and that's from some reenacting activity that I've done. Okay, but
what kind? Civil War reenactment?
1812.
Oh, you guys build a White House and burn it? I've never heard of.
No. We 1812 is actually this is. I haven't been able to participate this year, which is too bad because it's the bicentennial. But it's a lot of fun because. I don't like the Civil War because the Confederates are too weird. I mean, Confederate reenactors are just weird. Yeah.
We live in a world where they have Nazi reenactors for World War II.
It's like, I understand, the Union guys are into being living historians and learning something and all that. Confederate reenactors, a big percentage of them are trying to some kind of, I don't know what. It's not just living history.
I don't know. I would argue down south the war never really ended.
Well, and Iowa didn't really play a big part in the Revolutionary War, so I wanted to get into reenacting, and this is kind of 1812 turf. So, but anyway, that being aside, it's like when a gun enters a situation, it literally becomes the loose cannon. All right. It doesn't promise safety. It actually increases the risk of danger because I don't know I can't even count anymore how many people I know that they found out the quickest way, to use your language, to punch your own ticket is that little machine with the bullets in them. All right.
But we know, again, statistically, you're more likely to have it used on a family member, intentionally or not. Than to ever.
A homicide is more likely to occur in your home if a firearm is already present.
But back, remember there was the mass shooting outside of the Empire State Building.
Yeah,
and it turned out that the perpetrator hadn't shot anyone out there. It was New York City police officers. And it wounding 9 bystanders.
Yeah.
And that's what a gun, or in this case, several guns, does to a situation. And the folks over at Mother Jones, who, again, dare I say, have really stepped their game up in the last few years, went back to look at the mass shootings of the last 30 years and can't find an example of where just, regular average Joe stopped it. There were.
You can't. It goes too fast.
Well, now hold on. In 2002, the Appalachian School of Law, there was a mass shooting. They leave out the fact that those were cops at the School of Law. But even then, that's probably your best case scenario. The shooter had already run out of ammo by the time they got to him.
It's going to go pop, 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 and you're not even going to register what's going on, and you're certainly not going to be able to interpret by what you see around you who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, who's just screaming, and you're not going to be able to tell anything. And you would think that you would learn from police who do on a unfortunate regular basis hit innocent people, and they're supposed to be training constantly in the use of their firearms. So, to have someone who just happens to be have a firearm on them, expect that person to be the hero. I think that's pretty much wish.
Well, and there are other examples. 2005, in Tacoma, Washington, a man walked into a shopping mall, started shooting. A man by the name of Brennan McCown was carrying a licensed handgun, and for his troubles, got shot multiple times. Another one in Tyler, Texas, Mark Wilson actually fired his handgun at a man on a rampage at the county courthouse. And he was killed by the perpetrator with an AK-47.
Even if it's not all that, I live in a country where there is large parts that you don't go simply because you're afraid of getting shot because the people there have guns. Okay, that's like, any given major city, maybe even Des Moines. I mean, I think it's funny. Sometimes I know some people are afraid to go down into Little Mexico in the daytime because they think, horrible ghetto barrio, whatever. But people...
Yeah, Des Moines doesn't have bad neighborhoods.
I know, it doesn't, but apparently some people think it does, and if you go there and you get shot, it's your own fault. Because
although some people think, anything east of Windsor Heights is like no-go land.
But my point is, so here's this amendment, and I understand its purpose. It was to promote freedom and to promote safety, and you have to show me, really, in the 21st century, how's that working out?
Well, and I think that's the argument.
Because I have to worry. I have a 7-year-old daughter, so this thing in Sandy Hook Elementary School, this hits me home. I look out my kitchen window, and I see my kid's school, and I have to think about what are the possibilities of someone going berserk. I was talking to...
what is the draw with schools, anyway?
Well, because... I don't know. That's another discussion.
I'm not a psychologist. I have no clue. Why would they go to a school of all places?
I was talking to a school administrator. No, it wasn't. It was someone else. And they were telling me about in a rural school in Iowa, they have like double lockdown so that strangers can't walk into the school. You go through one set of doors, you buzz again, you repeat your identification, they check you out, you go through the other. And I'm like, you have kids in double lockdown facilities just because you're afraid of someone walking in, shooting up the place. Where is this freedom we're supposed to be enjoying?
No, you make a good point, and this is an argument, again, that I think is overdue. If the purpose is, freedom and safety,
I love
if the argument is simply, I like them, there's a lot of things people like that aren't allowed. I might like, breeding, new forms of plague, but I'm not allowed to, because the harm outweighs any
I'm
perceived
just looking around. I'm sorry to say,
benefit.
even the legal gun owner, even my neighbor who's the legal gun owner, as far as I'm concerned, he's not a benefit to the neighborhood. He's a burden, because chances are, because he's introduced a weapon into his home in our community, something might happen.
I don't know about, and I don't know, but I don't know. Do you live in a house, apartment, condo?
I live in a house.
Yeah, I think that argument breaks down house to house. Now, multifamily, especially when you're dealing with weaponry that can, easily shoot through walls. That's a different story.
I'm not saying that anyone's going to go house to house shooting up the place. But on my block, I don't like the idea of someone capping himself or shooting his spouse over an argument, or his kid showing his little sister, gee, look what I found. Daddy left this out. Bang. Okay? That kind of ruins my day. It just does. Okay? The bottom line is, as far as I'm concerned, gun people, gun owners, they're not a help, okay? They're just a burden, as far as I can tell. They make people hunker down. We live behind double locked doors. We send our kids to school behind double locked doors. And I'm tired of the hand-wringing. Okay, let's have a moment of silence. And I'm tired of the learned helplessness, because I'm telling you right now, Bradshaw, this too shall pass, and then we'll be back to business as usual.
Well, and that's the fear, Ron. I appreciate the call. That's the fear, is that we go through the status quo, and if you look at, and this is why, the polling for gun control, it does very poorly, and the NRA loves to point this out. The problem is, when you talk specifics, that's where things change. It reminds me of the Obamacare debate. I know that certainly changed in the last few months, where support for repeal of Obamacare is at an all-time low. Even when Obamacare itself was polling very poorly, the individual elements, pretty much everything except the mandate, had big support. So this comes actually from Frank Luntz, right? The master of the Fox News focus group. Concealed carry permits shouldn't be given to perpetrators of violent misdemeanors or individuals arrested for domestic violence. 75% are on board. 81% of NRA members. Concealed carry permits should only be restricted to individuals who have completed a safety training course and are 21 and older. 84% of people think that's a good idea. 74% of NRA members. And that one sounds, you're a gun person. You're okay with that, right?
With training?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. And here's, this was part of our changing of the gun laws here in Iowa, is our reciprocity.
Yep.
So if you have a Virginia carry permit, it's good in Iowa.
Yeah, we accept everybody's, I think.
In Virginia, it's an online course. It's an
online course here now too. Yeah.
So what they've seen is record numbers of out-of-staters in Virginia taking their course to get a Virginia
that's
concealed carry permit. So what you've done is then lowered the bar, so there's no proficiency, there's no application.
I think you're onto something there. There is can I explain how it works? So yeah. Okay. There are two permits, if you have your Iowa permit, that you want, that will unlock almost every state in the union. One is the Utah, and one is the Florida, besides your Iowa permit. So when you go take the Iowa class, especially if you take a classroom setting, only certain people can offer the Utah and Florida. Then you can apply, and you have to fingerprint and do the basic requirements for the out of towner permits for them, and that'll basically give you a permit anywhere you want to go that isn't just strictly gun banned. I agree that the online courses are insufficient. I think I am fine with the shooting proficiency test.
How do you mandate? I mean, I honestly don't know the machinations behind proving, because I don't think you can ever simulate like, here's a mall. It's not like the scene in Men in Black.
Well, it's
they bring all the...
Sure, yeah. At some point, we are limited by human error. Period. I mean, we in all things. But I do think you can make people prove they can shoot the firearm they have,
like, yeah,
consistently.
You can hit a target at 20 yards.
Yeah, and actually it's more than just like 20 yards. What they do is they move the target. You have different, like the way it used to be in Iowa when I first got my permit to carry. You had to shoot at 5 yards, 10 yards, and 15 yards, and I think 25 yards. And some of them moved the target. Some of them did shrinking targets. The idea is that you can get your grouping in a group like this, so that you could realistically defend yourself with the gun, because waving it all around and shooting everybody else doesn't help anybody.
And even cops do that.
Yeah. And so this is the exact same, this would be the exact same method they would teach our police officers how to do it.
I wonder what the percentage of people who fail that is.
Is
it like the DOT where they go, why don't you try that peripheral vision test again? Or why don't you try that eye chart again? I've stood behind out in Adele, watching a woman fail repeatedly. The eye test, and giving chance after chance after chance.
Well,
they finally got it.
I don't think anybody failed, but the gun course, you can learn to shoot. I mean, that's a learnable skill.
Yeah, but it's skill you should have already learned before you say, hey, I would like to take this gun everywhere I go.
And actually, but that's what the class is for. That class was an instructional, like when I went, it was a 2-day class.
But is there you're not good enough, you need to take this class again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, I was going to say, if my dog training had that, you had to probably have it.
You had to have a 70% accuracy. Which doesn't sound like much.
That doesn't sound like much.
But it's about a 6-inch circle that you have to be able to hit inside every time. So,
is there like an area outside? Here's what I want. If you go 6 inches away from that, and if any bullets land out there, you fail.
No. But that gets factored into the score. So if you had more than like one of those, you got to remember statistically, most gunfights happen within 7 feet of each other. So the chances for you missing are pretty slim. However, I still think you should be capable to use your firearm. I would be fine even with mandating that you qualify for different types of firearms. If we had to do it by caliber rating.
Yeah, so if I learn on my little pea shooter, I can't then bring an M60 or whatever.
Yeah, well, and actually your pea shooter is going to be harder to learn on. A lot of people, what they'll do, including myself, regrettably, I didn't get more responsible with it till afterwards. I brought a big long barreled 44 that's only problem was that it hit the bullseye every time. And that's what I used to shoot. Made my passing very easily. Well, I knew I was going to carry a J-frame, a Smith & Wesson J-frame, which is a snub-nose 38 pea shooter, right? As you would say. Those two guns are drastically different, and I had to take a lot of time to learn how to shoot that gun proficiently. And I never was extremely comfortable with the proficiency with that gun.
I don't mean this to be, but did you ever carry that gun when you weren't good at it?
No.
Weren't good with it?
No, there's no sense in carrying a gun you're not good with.
There's no sense in a lot of this, but it keeps happening. So.
Well, yeah, I agree. But, I mean, like I said, I'm fine with training. I think training is a good thing. The one thing I will say is a lot of people assume that gun training is the answer for everything.
No, I think this is like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, exactly.
To put together.
But this is one of the things that fits, because a lot of people are like, well, if you train your kids to use guns, there won't be gun accidents. And in my case, very true. My dad had guns in the house. I knew how to break into his safe to get them. And what kept me safe was I knew how to use the gun. What would have been better is for my dad not to have a safe that I couldn't break into, because that would have been the best solution, not me having access to the guns. That wasn't my dad.
If you're the type of person, and again, not to pick on Mrs. Lanza again, but who is, afraid of imminent attack on your home.
Sure.
Is paranoid to the point you don't let people inside your home.
Sure.
Wouldn't it just be common sense that everyone in the family know how to get the weapons when they're needed? Not if they're needed, when they're needed? That mentality.
That is a antiquated mentality, I think. I
think it's still there.
It sure is. My wife, her parents had that mentality and taught her how to shoot,
and how to access the guns,
and how to access the gun,
and obviously,
and she has a story of where she was showing one of her friends, and I said, "Well, how stupid is that?" And she says, "Yeah, we keep our guns locked up, even the ones that are closer to us for emergency response type things. Those are in safes. They're just smaller safes. They're not my big. I mean, I've got a 6 foot, 6-inch steel safe in my basement that a hurricane can't take out, and then I have smaller safes that keep." The guns that I would carry or something like that, so that they're not unsecured. I think
couldn't bust that thing open with a sledgehammer.
Maybe. I mean, they're pretty thick. I mean, you would have to try. I mean, it would have to be so willful that I don't know that you couldn't get into any safe. It's not. And I agree, they're not my favorite. Normally, when I have a gun in one of them, it's because I'm asleep next to it. It's not because
I can't put myself in that mindset. I've never felt that unsafe at night.
I don't feel unsafe at night. That's exactly the point.
But I don't have a gun, and I feel that way. I don't.
Well, I'm. You know what? I'm a big proponent that you have the right not to own a gun. There are some people that would think that is a bad idea.
I know,
and should be legislated.
Those people are mental and want mandate the towns.
If you don't want to have a gun, I think that's okay. I think if somebody wants to have a gun, I think some basic training is a good idea.
How about this one? Prohibiting terrorist watch list members from acquiring guns.
Yeah.
Almost 30% of NRA members say that's a bad idea.
That's because they're afraid they're going to become terrorists. The problem is these are good ideas, but they need to be defined in such a way as to protect America.
Well, I think part of the problem, we have a paranoid gun culture.
Sure. These guys are paranoid. And
they're amassing their giant arsenals of freedom. These are two problems.
Or they have gun collections. I mean, you can call them whatever. I mean, some collectors own, like my brother owns 30-something guns, I think.
How about this guy named it 47 guns and $100,000 worth of it? I mean, how much ammo is $100,000?
That's a lot.
Would that fill this room?
No.
No,
I'd probably fill a small corner over
bullets are about 50 cents a pop, right?
No. A lot of the guns I shoot are $1.50, $2 a shot. So that's
so he's got somewhere between 50 and 75,000 rounds just hanging out in his house.
Yeah, which is probably just takes up a small corner
for hunting purposes.
I would imagine with that much money invested, it's probably
because you're a paranoid maniac.
No, I was going to say it's probably big game stuff. I mean, because to get that kind of money into it, I've got a buddy who's got 10,000 rounds for every gun he owns.
I mean, I guess after like the 25th gun, they all start to look alike at that point?
No, a lot of people that own stuff like that have a lot of the hand-me-downs. Like one of my guns that I have is a .22 revolver that my dad handed me down. It's not necessarily a useful gun other than to teach the children how to shoot with a small caliber that's not going to kick. But it's, a lot of those guns are going to be stuff like that, stuff they got from the grandparents. Some of them are specialized hunting. You do not take the same gun to go to Africa on a safari that you would to hunt deer.
I will bet you anything, Mr. Von Meyer of Cedar Lake, Indiana, has never gone to... I bet you, it's probably a coin flip. I bet you the guy's not even a hunter. Just a hunch.
Yeah, and I don't know specifically who you're talking to. I'm just... This
is the guy in Indiana. They pulled the 47 guns out of his house because he said he was going to kill a bunch of people at an elementary school.
Well, and that guy's messed up in the head, and he probably is just one of those soldier of fortune guys. I mean, there are different reasons why people collect these things. Not all of them are bad.
No, but again, the cost benefit. I'm sure there are people out there who think it'd be really cool to have a display of bubonic plague. You know, keep a couple vials. Maybe you do a tasteful lighting on a wood background.
The problem
but you're not allowed to have that because, again, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, I understand.
And I think that's where do guns need to go into that category? Because are we safer?
I don't think we're going to have a real serious conversation about guns this time around, Bradshaw. I think what's going to be a serious conversation is the mental illness and their access to them.
That is, but man, why are the mentally ill gravitating towards guns?
Because
they're the most quickest and effectivest way of implementing their messed up delusion.
Except they're not.
They don't go grab.
They're
knives.
really not, though. I would blow a place up. It would be way more effective.
Yeah,
if
but
you want to catch everybody and do everything,
that adds a very high degree of difficulty. Ask the one
Timothy
fingered.
McVeigh just drove a truck with fertilizer and it set off a bomb. It's not hard to make a bomb. You took chemistry.
Yeah,
this kid was a genius. I mean, that's what they're. Almost every report I read spoke to how intelligent this kid is.
Yeah, kid was smart.
And if you're trying to kill a bunch of people, it is not that hard to create a bomb.
To make one that goes. Ask the underwear bomber. It's far easier to make.
He's trying to
dud.
Yeah, but the underwear bomber was trying to make a very small, compact. This guy could have taken a U-Haul truck, filled it with fertilizer, drove it through the school, and blew it up.
Yeah, but we don't see 30, 50, 60 of those. We see the mass shooting. No one drives.
You talk about 60 over a period of 20 years. That's really a minuscule drop in the bucket compared to the deaths we have from strangulations and all kinds of stuff. I mean,
but those are just the mass shootings. That doesn't include the gang Luz. Remember him at the University of Iowa, or whatever schmuck was shooting up houses and hitting people.
Sure.
This morning here in Des Moines, it doesn't even count that.
I understand that.
Or the tens of thousands of gun suicides every year. Well, we're just talking about mass shooting.
Gun suicides, I don't even understand why you try to factor those into the gun laws. If somebody's going to kill themselves, they're going to kill themselves, and it doesn't really matter what instrument they use.
Well, I think part of it, again, is education, which is you are far more likely to have a gun suicide in your house than to ever have an altercation, with the generic bad guy.
How likely are you to have a suicide in your house in general, regardless of the gun? If you have a depressed teenager,
suicide rates are higher in households with guns.
But that's I don't know that you could even prove that. I mean that.
Well, we know how many households. We know how many suicides. Do those households have a gun?
But we don't know that those people would have used a gun. Some people, when they commit suicide, are trying to get help. And
I'll leave the causation up to you. But the stats are the stats.
Yeah, but
either gun people are more likely just overall. To punch their own ticket.
I think they're more likely to be successful in the punching their own ticket. What I'd like to see is a stat based off of tries and failed suicides, because that's a sizable net.
Yeah, I mean, that's psychology. And then your method of suicide, yes, goes to show whether you're serious or not.
Well, but I don't know that somebody tries to hang themselves.
Well, even non-serious ones are successful.
From time to absolutely. I have one in my family.
But if you want to be absolutely positively sure, if you are Junior Seau,
I know a kid that blew off the front of his face trying to commit suicide. Happy guy now, but doesn't have a face. You're not always successful with gun suicide.
You're far more successful.
You're usually more successful
than with. I think that's why they gravitate towards the gun.
But that affects that number.
Most effective way to accomplish.
Well, but if we quit telling people that, maybe they'd think that stabbing themselves repeatedly was. I don't know. I mean, you're making. Yes, the gun is a very effective way to kill somebody. We've known that for hundreds of years.
That's what it's designed for, and that's why, again, it's not like a car or a hammer or even a rope.
No, it's an equalizer.
Far different uses. A Bushmaster. Go look this thing up.
I know exactly which gun he had. I understand exactly what it is.
Notice he left the hunting rifles at home. He didn't take his mom's hunting rifles.
No, he took the Bushmaster really is a tactical weapon for marksmanship. It's not that's the one he.
What is that? What do you need a tactical weapon for?
There's all kinds of tactical shooting events. They're fun.
But there's lots of things. Figure 8 racing is fun, but we don't allow that again on 235.
Well, nobody said he was allowed to do it at his school.
But why have one of those?
You can
just because it's fun.
You can use it.
Heroin is fun.
It's not heroin, Bradshaw.
No, it's far more deadly.
You know, I don't even know where to start. What cracks me up is that I think it's appropriate to have a conversation about it, but these people are being told all kinds of horrible stuff about what could have saved their children. The children are dead. We should deal with that reality. And that's what I want to do
is deal with that reality.
And all the facts come in, then we can frame the conversation in such a way that we can address what would have stopped this instance.
Well, how about the existence of the Bushmaster?
There's nothing.
Tactical shooting events. Right? We have a place where you can take part in those. It's a well-regulated militia we call the Army.
That's not a well-regulated. That's an Army. Those are completely different things.
Well, what do you consider a well-regulated militia?
A militia is something ran by the people. The Army is not ran by the people. It is ran by the President of the United States.
All right, should we set up well-regulated militias where gun owners could go if they want to?
I think we should also do that.
So to own a gun, you need to be in the well-regulated militia, like the Second Amendment says?
The Second Amendment is not translated that way, nor is that the spirit.
No, those are the direct words.
No, it is not the direct words. It's the right of the arms, or the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed.
And what does it say in the sentence before that?
It says we have the right to. It's an and/or. It's not exclusive.
Then why did they put well-regulated militia in there?
Because we also have the right to a well-regulated militia. We can form up militias for the purpose of usurping government authority. We have that right.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is one sentence.
But that's two. It's two thoughts.
One sentence.
That's all right. I can say two things in a sentence too. It's two thoughts, Bradshaw.
Then why not?
Because if it was only for the militia, it would said the right of those militias to keep and bear arms, not the right of the people. When it talks about the people as defined in the Constitution, it is talking about all the people.
Well, if we don't need a well-regulated militia now, which I
would argue we do.
Well, considering we don't have one and we seem to get by,
I don't think we are getting by. I think we are in a horrible society, Bradshaw, where I think these things would be good. I think that it's okay to be prepared for worst case scenario. I think it's funny that you guys would mock worst case scenario, but when 9/11 happened, you had nothing to say. I mean,
what guns do about 9/11?
Guns would have done a lot about 9/11 had they been on the plane. A lot, because a box cutter wouldn't have done crap.
So we should arm. There should be guns on every.
We're
back to literally Archie Bunker arguments at that point.
No, we're back to what's the responsibility of an airline to protect its passengers, and I think having an armed security guard would have been a great idea throughout the history of the airplane.
Prior to 9/11, we knew
you have a guest.
But a hijacking was. It was a one-way trip to Cuba or. Sub failed state. Now that changed on 9/11, and we adapted to
because we didn't call somebody's bluff. Because for years people have been bluffing, and finally we found that crazy is not going to bluff.
Not bluffing.
They were bluffing.
We had certainly had hijacked planes and hijacked boats.
Yeah, but in general, like you said, it was a one-way trip to somewhere nice, and everybody ended up all right.
Yeah, I mean there were horrible situations that occasionally Delta Force would
Yeah, but see
Chuck Norris style come in on, but they weren't being used as ballistic missiles.
Yeah, but again, just because they weren't doesn't mean they couldn't have been, and just because we lucked out doesn't mean we shouldn't have been prepared.
But I mean, a gun didn't stop, the underwear bomber. A gun didn't stop.
You can't stop everything. That's why you guys. It's funny.
No, I'm saying
it's funny to me.
The Second
Bradshaw,
Amendment is irrelevant when it comes to 9/11.
What cracks me up is you'll list all these things the gun couldn't have stopped, and yet they're suddenly all powerful when you want to take mine away. Which is it?
No, they're not all powerful. They just kill people. They just kill people.
Oh, that's all they do. That's all they do.
That's what they were designed for.
Because most guns kill animals, not people. Most guns shoot targets. They punch
But you
holes
just
in
said
targets.
they're
Tactical events are fun. You walk through a door, you shoot a silhouette.
driving a
big
car
deal.
fast is fun, but we limit where you can do it in public.
Then we limit where you can do a tactical event in public too.
But you
It's
don't
not
need
like
the-
it's not limited.
But
This guy
because
broke
it's
1 million
fun.
laws. I think it was like 41 laws
But
before
because
he
it's-
fired a shot.
But again, because it's fun, all right.
So what?
If that's the only reason,
Is base jumping fun? Follow me here. But
but there are plenty of places where you're not allowed to do it.
Absolutely, and same with shooting. So that's the same.
But hold on, we outlaw parachutes because of the harm it may do to others.
But more people die base jumping than any other extreme sport. Do we outlaw base jumping because it's harmful to those people?
Then argue that base jumping should be made illegal. I don't
think we should. I think
tactical weaponry should be the realm of the armed forces. Hi, Mac. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Can I take this conversation to a different level?
Sure.
Okay. So this comes down to the interpretation of what the Constitution meant.
Correct.
All right. I would argue with you, and have said so publicly, that our forefathers did not think we'd be walking around with machine guns, automatic.
The things that didn't exist.
Right. They didn't think we'd be walking around with tanks or nuclear bombs. So perhaps your argument seems to be that perhaps we need to take a look at the Constitution so it better fits these days and times of what the forefathers would have written in had they known all these weapons existed.
Well, no, I think it's what do we want to do with it, not what the founding fathers, again, didn't believe that women should vote. The founding fathers didn't believe that, non-free people who only count for 3/5 of representation should vote. I mean, to see the Constitution as a, divinely inspired. They didn't want us to vote for senators.
Right. So, in other words, how things were thought of then can change, evolve, if I may use the president's term, evolve to what meets today's standards.
Yes.
Okay. Then perhaps what we can do is also look at what a mess our world has become when God is removed from the schools, the government, and every place else.
I would argue that it's been far from removed. I mean, you have
it's gone.
The most liberal president ever hosting prayer breakfast.
Talk to a teacher, and they'll tell you the quickest way to get fired is to talk about God.
Well, yeah, we don't want people evangelical, being evangelical in a classroom. No, it's more when your kids were in school, you wouldn't want someone in there telling them that Allah is the true way and the only true, prophet.
That's a wrong argument.
But no, you would be rightly offended by that if someone had been preaching that.
I want to go back and relook at the way the Constitution was written, because what we've discovered in 200 and some years is that ammunition and weapons have changed. Mm-hmm. We have also discovered that the mental case of people has changed.
I don't know that it has.
Okay.
You come from an era of witch burning and, manifest destiny genocide.
So perhaps
in many ways we've improved.
Perhaps we've also come to the place where we realized that this experiment of not having a state religion was probably too far. What we probably should do is say atheists are okay. We don't need to wipe them out or witch burn them or anything else.
Mighty whitey.
But perhaps the Creator has shown us in 200 and some years that when you take him out,
he was never in.
He was in England, and they left England to escape the fact that the English state said they had to be Christian. We came over and said, you can be whatever you want. In fact, you can be nothing. And in 200 and some years, that's a failed experiment. Because as we've seen, when we push the Creator completely out of the education of our youth, completely out of anything that's substantial in our government, what we end up with is sinners. Evil people running churches. Evil people running the government.
You have when have you not had evil people running the government?
Okay, you now have 20 dead children.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't just about the weaponry. It's about the mindset. It's about the worldview.
And has that do you think that worldview is something new?
I think the worldview has become acceptable to be driven by the sinners.
So when we eradicated the Native American population, what caused that?
Greed.
All right. But that God was certainly in our schools then and had been for years.
I'm not seeking perfection.
But
I'm seeking progress.
Okay, but
and we are
advocating something that we've had in history, and we weren't any more moral. Were those probably, and I don't mean this disparagingly, but the people who turned fire hoses on Dr. Martin Luther King and friends, you think they consider themselves Christian?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
but see, what we've done now is we have a better understanding of what our society looks like when you rid God of our society. We now know what that looks like, and that experiment has failed.
But I would argue it doesn't look any different.
We have 20 children dead last Friday. It's failed. We have mentally ill kids who are able to play dangerous video games. Okay, I remember you and I used to have this argument on video games, and because I don't play them and I don't understand them. But I believe that the society now shows, with more and more and more and more and more children committing gun acts, that those bad video games were in fact dangerous to our kids.
But before bad video games, it was bad music. Remember Tipper Gore? And before it was bad music, it was bad books, and Henry Miller must be banned.
No, because bad video games empower the child to feel like they can take a life and it's okay.
Go back 20 years, and it was bad music.
No, bad music never...
Go back 20 years before that.
Bad music never taught a child that it was okay to kill somebody. Now, come on. We're not talking apples and apples
Don't
here.
You remember the body count, Ice-T cop killer argument, or the freak out over NWA and the whole gangster rap phenomenon?
I actually would say Bradshaw's right. Bad music was a contributing factor to violence, particularly in urban youth.
Even before, you don't even have to go that far to Columbine. Remember, it was Marilyn Manson's fault.
So we understand that when we allow our youth to make evil their gods, whether it be rap music that speaks ill of society and killing people or video games, this evil that is within our society has got to be gotten rid of.
I think it's gun people looking for a scapegoat. It's got to be something other than the gun, because guns don't kill people. People do.
Okay.
So we look for reasons to talk about anything but guns.
Okay, then, Mr. Reed. My name is Mr. Bonner, and let's meet in the middle on this. You let my God back in schools to teaching children, and I'll take away all the assault rifles, and all we'll have is shotguns, rifles, and handguns. Are you willing to go with that?
No, because I don't think that's a deal I need to make. One, support for outright gun banning of any sort is incredibly low and simply isn't possible.
Okay, so you're saying your argument won't fly.
What is my argument?
To ban assault rifles.
Well, we've already had assault rifle bans that were allowed to expire.
Okay, but I'm asking you what you would accept.
I don't have an answer. Like I was telling Dan, this is a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
If you don't have an answer, can we try one that's been around for thousands of years, and that's God and love and kindness?
Which God?
Okay, the God of the Bible. And
I don't know. There's a couple. The guy who smotes towns, or the Prince of Peace? Which one you want to go with?
He's all. He's sovereign. He's everything.
Okay.
And if you...
What about our Hindu friends? Do they have to leave Vishnu at the border?
You know what we're going to do if you're Hindu? We're not going to make you pay the tax that the other kids have to pay to go to school, and you can use that money to start your own school. You will not be forced to contribute to the tax factor that is education.
Again, you go through,
and then you could all the religions in the world that want to come to the United States.
The 10,000-year history of religion. There was never a time where it was great and moral and everyone.
God is always good. People are sinful.
Well, that's just the flip side. Conservatism never fails. People only fail conservatism.
If we allow all the religions the equal access to education and not tax.
That usually ends up in fighting, because people tend to take great offense when someone teaches their children religious beliefs that they don't.
Well, see, they can pull them out of that school and go to one that they believe in, and there will be the atheist school. What we do is we redo education in this country so that those parents who want their child taught about a living God, they can go to school A.
They already can.
Okay.
Des Moines Christian's just down the road a bit. If you want to, home church your kids. You got
10 grand?
You can do that.
Do you got 10 grand?
No, but hopefully they'll be good at sports and get into dowling and find Catholic.
Yeah, but the Catholic,
your argument falls apart there. You're running down the rabbit trail now.
No, I'm saying we have those schools. If you want to home church your kids.
Okay. Do you realize that I still pay taxes and I have no kids in public school?
Correct.
Okay, why?
Because you benefit from having a school system. Iowa is better off with good schools. For more information on this, look to Alabama.
So what if we took that same amount of money?
Georgia.
We don't change the money at all, but we create Christian schools?
I understand the desire to defund the public school system.
Why not? Why don't we try that experiment for a while? Because this one's failed. We have 20 children dead.
But you believe society has failed
Absolutely.
Because this guy went...
Yes, absolutely. Well, if you believe that the gun laws have failed because this guy did this... I know
the gun laws have failed.
No,
They've been
not at all.
For years.
No, not at all.
Are we safer now because of the number of guns in this country?
Yeah.
You think we're safe?
Yes, we're safer. Except for those people.
Then why is our homicide rate higher than every first world nation that has very strict gun laws?
Laws aren't defined to make people safe. You're missing the whole point of the argument. A law is a punishment. It's you cannot do this, or there's a punishment.
Why doesn't Japan have our same...
Japan doesn't have an armed population. We do. You have to deal with the card you've been dealt, Bradshaw. You can't disarm everybody. It's impossible. We don't even have the finances to disarm everybody.
The finances to do whatever we want.
Here, we're running out of time here. Here's the point to me stepping in, and I appreciate you letting me step in. I'm all up for change.
Okay, but
But it's going to be change for the better, and we're going to look at what we've done and the results of it, and I'm tired of throwing good money after bad. Taking God out of government and not teaching our children about morals and the Creator and what you were here intended to be and to do has failed.
You should look at George Tamarin, and he did some excellent work in exactly what you are describing.
Okay.
And how it teaches morals. He was an Israeli psychologist. Probably not familiar with his work, so I'll help here. And he decided to take the story of Jericho and read it to Israeli school children. And said, was that just? And like 90% of them said, well, yes, God commanded. To another classroom, he changed it to General Lin, a Chinese general from antiquity. And almost 90% said, no, that was a horrible thing. And my God, why would someone do something like that? Mm-hmm. And what was the difference?
The difference, well, first of all, he lied, and in the midst of every sin, there's a lie.
No,
he changed history into a fantasy.
Well, that's the point. He took a story and just removed the religion from it, and all of a sudden those actions were not moral and they were not.
But it doesn't matter.
The basis of those actions were rooted in the religion.
Yeah,
it is rooted on the fact that God is sovereign and in control, and that the nation of Jericho, when the walls fell, hated God. And if you remove that, of course it sounds bad. If these are good people,
so if someone hates God, it's okay to.
You know what,
sack
Bradshaw?
their town?
Unfortunately, people that hate God are going to get much worse than having their town sacked. The Bible talks about it.
Okay, but not all of us believe
it doesn't
your particular set of supernatural
and I love you, brother.
Then let's let you build a school where your beliefs are followed.
Sure.
How many ice cream stores do we have? How many hamburger joints? How many different furniture stores, automobile kinds? Why does the government have to have one school that tries to push God out of it?
Because when you let it loose, you end up with what they have in Louisiana.
No, when you let it loose, you have 20 children dead.
No, hold on. Are you familiar with the Louisiana kind of open school
No, I'm not as smart as you.
Where they literally teach that the Loch Ness Monster disproves evolution. And the Trail of Tears, we're all familiar with that story. Is instead a way that brought people to Christ.
Okay, I don't know what either one of those things are.
That's kind of the gist of it. You should look at what Louisiana is doing with because what they have is a bunch of preachers and pastors who, because they have now access to those public school funds without any accountability.
There's the key. They have no accountability. Who in their right mind would support something without accountability?
Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal.
Okay, well, like I said, you said the word, no accountability. I'm not interested in my child being educated by someone that has no accountability. I'm talking about biblical world standards. And if you don't believe in Jesus, you don't have to.
But hold on. The Catholics don't agree with the Presbyterians, don't agree with
then the Catholics and the Presbyterians can have their own school.
They already can. I just don't want to pick up the tab for their religious funding.
Well, I understand that. And that's why I said there will be a tax, and that tax will be laid out how much it is, and you will be required to pay that tax into the school where your child goes.
Okay, and so if I don't have kids, I don't have to pay the tax?
No, you still have to pay a tax, just like you said. It does what it does for our society.
I think it'd be great if we didn't have to have him pay a tax. I would love to him not have a ball in this fight.
Hold on, there are a lot of I will because I live here, and I benefit even without kids, not just from the education that I got, but having
well, then you can donate your money.
Educated.
I would.
No, we're going to have school tax now. If you don't want them, you're more than welcome to try to get something like that passed. I'm guessing that's a bit of an uphill fight.
Why?
Because most people disagree with you.
No, most people are lazy and want their kids to go someplace free without having any choice.
That's not free. You just said we pay for it.
I understand.
If you don't own a house,
you don't
pay for it. If you rent, you own rental property. You pass it along in the cost.
We've talked about this. That argument isn't fair.
Why?
I take the risk. Along in the cost. I take the risk and responsibility of home ownership.
Correct, but when you determine how much you're going to charge in rent, you factor that in. It's one of your expenses.
Okay, but
you pass it along to the customer.
Except that the school tax doesn't have any laws protecting it from going up. If Mac decided to change it every time his tax rate changed, his rent, he would not be a home or a landlord very long. So I mean,
well, yeah, if the market dictates that you're passing along too much cost,
so maybe he's not passing along all of his costs. Maybe he's eating some of it. But
Bradshaw, he's doing it to make
the fact
money.
Mac's got a good point. It is a good thing for parents to be able to decide where their kids are educated into what religion. I don't care if you want God-hating atheist kids. I just don't want my kids to be those.
I'm not going to make your kids God-hating.
Yes, you are. You're doing it every day in government schools. Every day in government schools you're doing because you're yelling that Jesus doesn't belong here.
I've argued this for years. The folks who are turning people away from religion, not me. I can tell this as someone who went through the process.
Bradshaw, if my kid tells
you... It wasn't me. It wasn't Richard Dawkins. It wasn't Christopher Hitchens. It wasn't Sam Harris.
You know who it was?
It wasn't James Randi.
You know who it was?
Religious folks.
No, it was Satan.
Who turned people...
It was Satan, and he's real.
Hey, Bradshaw, how about this?
That's the kind of stuff that makes people
Let me ask you a question. If I want to teach my kids the earth was built in 6,000 years, and I don't want them to learn evolution is true, does that bother you just a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to tell me what I can teach my kids?
No, I'm saying you're free to teach it, but we're not going to teach it in science class because it's not backed up.
But yeah, you're making up your presupposition that it's not backed up, even though there are so many holes in what you call science, and you misdiagnose all kinds of theories and try to shove it down my throat.
Even Marco Rubio came out and said that the Earth is 4.5.
Marco Rubio is a kowtowing idiot coward. Now
all right, I'm leaving this conversation so I can prepare for
a science class is a science class.
Next year. A sensible show with deep thinkers on webcast1live.com.
If you want to teach your kids that the Earth is 6,000 years old, that's between you and your kids.
But you don't like it. You don't want it taught in the school that you would pay for.
I don't want it taught in science class because it's not science.
Okay, you don't want it taught in a school you would pay for.
Where would you teach it?
They teach it at the school they go to, which I pay for, on top of paying for whatever spawn you end up having.
The school teaches them that the Earth is 6,000 years old?
Absolutely. Why else would I send them to Christian?
Which school is that?
I send them to a Christian school.
Which school is that?
They all do it. You want Des Moines? Go ask Des Moines Christian. You think they teach evolution there, Haas? I mean, really? Do you not know what Christian schools teach? This is Orthodox Christianity. The earth is only 6,000 to 12,000 years old. That's what they teach.
No, I mean, that's Kirk Cameronism.
No, that's Orthodox Christianity. Kirk Cameron happens to agree with Orthodox Christianity. It didn't shape it. It's been around thousands of years. That is the common
That's an accredited school?
That is an accredited school, buddy. That's what all Christian schools teach, without exception almost.
They don't get any public funding, though, do they?
I believe they do, actually.
Well, if you get public funding, you have to.
We talk about evolution,
qualify.
but it's not true. So we don't have to qualify anything. You don't understand what Christian believes.
I was for most of my life. I considered.
But if you think that a Christian school didn't teach that, it shows me.
Well, I know Christian schools do teach. Dowling is a Christian school,
sure,
and they teach evolution.
Yeah, that's Dowling's a Catholic school, and Dowling is a Catholic school.
They're Christian.
Dowling is a Catholic school. We can keep doing this, but they teach whatever the Catholic society wants them to believe. That's not Orthodox Christianity, and that's not
fundamentalism. You want fundamentalist Christianism.
Fundamentalism doesn't mean what you think it means. So no, I want Orthodox Christianity. I'm going to use my own word.
Potato.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. I'm talking about Christianity that reaches back 2,000 years, not to the beginning of the American culture. I don't want my kids educated as American kids. I hate America in that respect. I think it's a nasty, awful country that we're stuck in a gun culture and all kinds of other problems that need to be solved.
And again, these are the things that far more than any atheist making an argument or writing a book or having a foundation or appearing on late night TV. This is the stuff that's doing far more to push people away from religion than anything I do. I just offer them a safe landing spot and telling them it's okay.
Yeah, I don't think I think you're mistaken. If you look at some of these churches like Rick Warren, who has like 30,000 people, Mars Hill out in Portland, where all the artsy people go, 20,000 people. Churches are exploding. Like, you think people are running to you, but the reality is the people that were never really Christians in the first place are going over and going, okay, I don't really believe that. And we're like, you didn't the whole time. Christianity, genuine Orthodox Christianity is exploding, Bradshaw.
But you're going to argue that Rick Warren is a Orthodox Christian?
Rick Warren,
Saddleback Church is an Orthodox Christian church?
I would argue that Rick Warren is on the very fringes, and I have my own personal things that one would have against a brother with Rick Warren. But in the sake of things, Rick Warren is a Christian. He has a Christian church, and I would argue that, yeah.
Well, yeah, but didn't I say it was a Christian? Was it an Orthodox Christian church?
By and large, yes.
I thought that was the whole point of Orthodox. You're either all in or you're all out.
Nothing's black and white like that, and you know that.
Well, no, I've never seen an Orthodox Jew at but
you're taking the term Orthodox Jew and you're supplementing Christianity. Orthodox Jew and
say the word Orthodox. That's
we got to get you off the air. Say goodbye.
Right. I got to scoot. I'm sure this debate will come up again. And thank you all for joining in and helping me make my point. We'll be back tomorrow, 1:30, here on Webcast One Live. Thanks for watching.